and general manager of the Blue Quill Angler. He grew up here in Colorado. He grew up in Wilmington, so I think Roger Franklin saw him just about every day, probably more than his math teacher did, right? Anyways, anyways, he's guiding now for 15 plus years. The shop, Mr. Dorsey, the Steinbecks have been our friends. Going fourth chapter, giving guided trips, giving us opportunities to go up to their shop and run raffles and everything to raise money for our chapters. So again, with the Orbis team and with the Blue Quill team, I think we're covered on both ends. So again, I'd like to turn it over to Chris. He's going to give us a little talk about the guide's approach to fly selection and strategy. Okay.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, everybody, for having me here. Very honored to come talk to you guys. As Scott was saying, I grew up here in Littleton. I grew up fishing Chatfield Reservoir, fishing Waterton all the time, neighborhood bass ponds. That's how I fell in love with fishing. And ever since I was a kid, fishing has always been an obsession for me, and especially once I started fly fishing. And so I consider myself very, very lucky to be able to do what I do for a living. I think it's the best job on earth. I get to go chase fish all the time, go spend time in the mountains that we all love. And part of what drew me to fishing, it's always been the chase for me. I love trying to figure out what those fish are doing, trying to understand the why behind things. And throughout my years of guiding, I started guiding right in this, right at the end of 2009. So I've been with the Blue Quill for over 15 years, getting to do what I love to do. And so throughout those years, as many of you can attest, you go out to the river, you're going to learn lessons a lot of times. And a lot of times they're the hard way, right? You're going to go out fish and not catch many fish. You struggle as you get going. And there's always been a quote for me, and this was from Pat Dorsey, was when I was really getting into fishing, Pat came out with a DVD called Nymphing Strategies. And in that DVD, he said something that's always stuck with me. And it was talking about a pet peeve is of how when anglers come up to you on the river, a lot of times everybody asks, do you have any luck today? Do you have any luck? Well, what we do is not luck. Sure, getting lucky is a good thing, and getting rewarded to catch a fish when you shouldn't is a good thing. I'll take luck every day of the week. But what a really seasoned guide, what a very experienced angler is going to do is they're going to fish with the strategies. They're going to have a purpose. They're not just tying a fly on, say, hey, let's see what happens. Hopefully catch a fish. There's a rhyme and a reason, the why behind things, why we choose the flies we are, why we're rigging up the way we do, why we fish certain spots of the river during different times of year. All those whys will help kind of formulate a game plan for you. And so one of those, like this presentation tonight, is going to be talking a lot about that game plan, that strategy, and how that changes throughout the years. What goes on in a guide's mind before a guide trip? And any good guide out there is going to tell you before a guide trip, they're coming up with a game plan for the next day, right? And we're going to assess the conditions we have. Is it going to be a sunny day? Is it going to be cloudy? God forbid, is it going to be windy? Those conditions all will help formulate a game plan for us. But part of those conditions is there's a few variables that we check daily that help formulate our game plan. And so the biggest variable we pay attention to every day is water conditions, right? How much water is coming down the river, cubic feet per second. If everybody here doesn't follow the river gauges, I advise you to start looking around. If you're to go fish Deckers or go fish Cheeseman Canyon, see what that river flow is. And when you first get going, it's all relative. You look at 300 CFS in Cheeseman, it's a great flow. But if you've never been there before, you don't know if 300 is high or low. And so start paying attention to that when you get to the river saying, okay, the river's at 250 CFS today. Make mental notes of that. And next time you go out fishing and the water looks a little bit higher, or you read the gauge, say, okay, it's not 250, it's 450 today. Well, now that there's so much more water in the system, that's going to change my game plan for the flies I'm tying on my rigs. And so water conditions, that is something we are checking daily. And in, not just water flows. Water flows is the big thing. Water temperatures are really important for us and really important for the entomology, the bugs in the river. And so when you have, take a tailwater, right? A tailwater, just a river controlled by a dam. It's really consistent flows, really consistent water temperatures, right? That's what we're looking for. If you get into the South Platte and they raise a lot of water out of the bottom of the dam, it's going to cool that system down, cool the water temperatures down, and probably change the bugs that are going to be active throughout the day, which would dictate the flies that are working well that day. The time of year is also a big variable for us. Everything in fly fishing in terms of the bug hatches is cyclical, right? I know every spring we're going to get a blue wing olive hatch. Now, it's not going to come down to the day, but if I'm down at Deckers, it's probably going to happen towards the end of March. And I know that going into the day, okay, if I'm going to go fishing this towards the end of March, I have an idea of what bugs are going to be active and what flies to choose to try to mimic those bugs. And we kind of talked a little bit about weather conditions. But when you go out there, you have a high pressure day, right? A blue sky day, no clouds in the sky. It's a beautiful day to be outside. Probably not the most productive day to go fishing. Those cloudy days are going to be a little bit more productive when those fish can't see as far. No feeling as vulnerable. The bugs are going to be a little bit better on those cloudy days. So a lot of times we always kind of look at those weather conditions of what we're going to see that next day. So as we talk tonight, we're going to be talking about how our game plan changes based off the season, right? We have winter, spring, fall, and summer. But if you notice, there's that middle point, the high water season, our runoff season, and our tactics change a little bit during that time of year. So we're going to break our high water season out differently. We're going to think of winter time as the dead of winter, December, January, and February. And then spring, March, all the way until that runoff time period, right about that middle part of May. When we get in our high water season, our runoff, we come off of that into our summer months of July, August, September, and in the fall in October, November. These is how a lot of times, like in the springtime, your rigs, your flow might change here and there based off of what the flows are. But generally speaking, you have an idea what bugs are going to be active. So whether those are low or high, you know what bugs you should be targeting, right? If you're at Deckers in May, early May, you're going to see caddis, but you're still be focusing a lot on those beta snips. So as we get going here, what we're going to do is we're going to start just right here in winter. Winter's knocking on our door. It's going to be here real quick, right? First measurable snow on average is usually October 17th here in the city. So it's going to be here quick. Colorado, we're fortunate. We have to fish 365 days a year. So when we go out fishing in the wintertime, we have options, right? Not every state does. And we're very lucky to have the options that we have. Now, as we talk fishing in the wintertime, let's talk about, okay, like what are the conditions we should be seeing? Again, to help formulate that game plan. So we know right away we're going to focus on those tailwaters. We're focusing on rivers that are controlled by a dam. Those rivers are going to have enough flow where they're not going to freeze over. You might get a little soft ice on the edges on the really low flows, cold snaps. Generally speaking, you want to target tailwaters, right? The bigger freestone rivers like the Colorado, the Arkansas, you're going to get a lot of big ice shelves in that river. And the wintertime fishing is usually not the best. So going into the wintertime, I'm going to focus a lot of my energy on those tailwaters. I'm going to go down to Deckers. I'm going to go hit the Arkansas River below Pueblo, which is a fantastic winter fishery. I'm going to go to Blue River and Silverthorne. All those are great winter fisheries. We also have to understand what we're trying to target, right? A trout in the wintertime cannot eat for multiple days. They can really slow down their metabolism and conserve energy. So on those really cold snaps, the population of fish just might not be eating hard that day. That's why fishing in the wintertime a lot of times is inconsistent. You have really good days. You have other days where you're just working hard to get any kind of hit you can. And having said that, You got to take advantage of any opportunity you have in the wintertime, because there's not going to be like in the summer months where you have multiple shots all throughout the day. Safety. Wintertime, be cautious. You take a fall as you're hiking in the river. Summertime, your pride hurts a little bit. You laugh off the embarrassment. Wintertime's different. Wintertime, bring a change of clothes, just something just in case. And handle the fish with care. You know, we talked about when that water temperature gets really cold, when you're talking low mid 30s, that's when the fish are really going to slow down their eating. And all winter, when they're not trying to spend it, they're not going to sit in fast currents, right? If they're sitting in fast currents, spend a lot of energy, what do they have to do? Eat. And in the wintertime, that's not their goal. So I know right away, I'm not going to be fishing every part of the river like I am in the summertime. I know if I'm fishing in the wintertime, I really want to dedicate my time to the slower currents, and I want to play that fish when I hook them fairly quicker. It's a double-edged sword because we're throwing small flies and light tippet in the wintertime. But those trout aren't trying to spend a ton of energy. So when you hook them, we're going to try to fight them a little bit quicker than the summer months, and we're going to try to keep them in the water the whole time. On those cold days in January, February, where it's 25 degrees outside and you hold that shut, the water could freeze in their gills. Looking out for our little fishy friends, right? And so be cautious with them in those winter months. Work those fish just a little bit quicker and push down your barbs. We say this all the time. It's a good practice to be in. If you're catch or release water, pinch down your barbs. It's really important in the wintertime, but it's also important all year long. And I get the argument a lot, and Alicia's fished with me, and I've told her this. You pinch down the barbs and you lose a fish, it's not because your barbs are pitched. It's because our mechanics and how we fight the fish are flawed, and it's going to point it out to you. Don't hesitate on pinching the barbs to try to lose a fish. Make sure you have a high rod tip and you keep a high leverage point. It's going to help those barbless flies stay in their mouth, and it's going to be way better for the fish. And we've all seen public water on those really crowded rivers, and you catch fish that get kind of beat up in their mouths a little bit. We all want to see clean, good fish. And so the more everybody just does their best at taking care of our fish, we're all going to benefit even more from it. So we have an idea what conditions we're seeing in the wintertime. Now let's talk about strategies, right? We talked those fish aren't in fast currents. So we're going to fish those slower runs. So on this gentleman right here, his name's Alan Casey. This run is down at Decker's right here. And you can see by Alan's feet real shallow. You can see the far side of the river, all the big submerged boulders under the current. And then right in the mid-river, you have a little trough that goes down and a slower current. In the wintertime, runs like this is where you're going to make your money. And we target stuff like that. We try to target feeding fish. We're so blessed in Colorado, we have a lot of clear water. Seeing fish is a whole different art. It's one of the hardest things I teach is sight fishing because everybody's eyes work differently. Everybody sees different cues. In the wintertime, you're going to see a lot of fish towards the back end of the runs laid up on the bottom. And they're going to be sitting there on the bottom, look like they're not moving. Tip your hat to those fish. Don't waste too much time casting at them. You can throw a steak in front of that fish, he's probably not going to eat it. I target feeding fish. How do you know if they're feeding? Right? If that fish is suspended off the bottom, you see him moving around. That's an active fish. That's a fish worth taking your time and trying to target in the wintertime. That's what you're looking for. And it sounds stupid saying, find the feeding fish. That's what we're trying to do every day. But in the wintertime, it's really important not to waste your time on fish that aren't going to play. You want to cover water. How often do we see in the wintertime, and all throughout the year for that matter, people get to the river, they're going to go find the favorite run you want to go fish, a run you did really well in last time. And you sit there and you stay hour after hour after hour. And you're going against a law of diminishing results, right? You open up a box of Oreos, that first Oreo tastes pretty good. The 30th Oreo, not so good anymore. The 50th Oreo, not so good anymore. The point is when you're fishing and you're working the same run over and over and you're not getting the results and you're there for an hour and a half, 2 hours, move, go walk around, go do yourself the service and go learn more of the river. Go find more of those little zones. Go cover more water. It's really important in the wintertime. And I said pretty much important all year. Another advantage of wintertime fishing, sleep in. You don't have to get to the river at 6 o'clock in the morning. Your prime feeding hours are going to be in the heat of the day, the brighter part of the sun, those warmer days, that 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., right? The heat of the day. That's your target. No need to get there early. You'll find fish in the morning. Don't get me wrong, but you're going to have better chances at the majority of fish waiting until like kind of the sweet spot of right about the midday. So fishing wise too, if I'm going in the wintertime, I know pretty much the only bug that's going to be active is a midge. It's a small little bug, right? There's going to be times as I get deeper in the winters, we get towards the mid end of January into early February, we're going to have a little winter stone out. But for the most part, most of our fishing is going to be subsurface. We're fishing nymph rigs. We're fishing tiny nymph rigs, right? We're trying to emulate a midge. They're small. And so when you go with really big flies in the winter, you can fool a fish or two. You want better chances of hooking more fish, mimic what they're eating, and that's going to be midges, which are small flies. Now, you'll see up here, it'll say flies 20 to 26, based off of flows, right? If I'm going to go fish Deckers and it's 225 CFS in January, I can get away with a size 20 and maybe 5X. If I'm fishing Deckers like most winters and you're at 100 CFS, 125, then you got to be on a size 22 or 24. You don't need to drop down to a 26 unless you're really throwing dry flies. At 26, you're going to hook fish. It's hard to keep them on your line. You're going to drop a lot of fish when you're fighting them. But again, dropping our leader size. So again, if we're going over fishing in the wintertime, we're going out to Deckers tomorrow, and we're going to say it's like mid-January right now. I know instantly I'm not throwing I say I want one. I'm not throwing a big stone fly. I'm focusing my efforts down deeper, throwing smaller flies that the fish are naturally eating. And I get done saying all that stuff about the tiny bugs. Think outside the box, right? Have fun. We're here to fish, right? If you're not getting it done and the nymph fishing's really tough, it's one of those days a lot of fish just aren't eating. Think outside the box. Throw a streamer. Mix it up. Route up predators, right? You have the ability to try to figure that predator instinct out of that fish. Throwing a streamer's not going to be probably your best option in the wintertime, but it's not the worst option either. I'm probably going to slow my cadence down. Smaller strips, heavier fly that's going to kind of bounce off the bottom. I'm not going to strip it real quick. Those fish aren't going to chase it hard. So going in the wintertime, think small. And then when you want to change the pace, throw a little stream around, see what happens. So all winter long, these are the nymphs that I am throwing consistently. The top secret midge in the top left. If you don't know the top secret midge, get to know that fly. The Manhattan midge in the top right. It's a great midge emerger. The Manhattan midge works all year long, especially in the winter months. It does really, really well. The old Black Beauty, you could do the flashback Black Beauty, standard Black Beauty. Those midge patterns, these are what I'm throwing a lot. A red larva, that's a rojo midge in the bottom left there. A red larva is a great attractor pattern in the wintertime. I'm going smaller on my rigs. Chances are sometimes a big attractor is not going to be the best answer for me, and that red larva is going to be my big fly, my attractor in my rigs. And then a black pheasant tail or black two-bit hooker. The reason behind that fly is to mimic the winter stones you're going to see. And so here fishing on a Platte January, a black pheasant tail is a really great fly to start with dropping a midge behind it. A lot of those winter stones, you'll see them after a snowy day. You'll see them crawling on the banks of the rocks. And about 16 to an 18, they're jet black. Great little food source for the wintertime as well. Now, there are going to be days we're going to see dry fly fishing in the wintertime. It's mainly going to be those. And so these are my top patterns that I know almost any fish I come across in the wintertime, I have a good chance to fool with one of these. Going from the Antonio's Quo Midge. Antonio's a guide up in Boulder. He has front range anglers up there. That dry fly he ties, that Quo Midge, is a fantastic pattern. CDC wing, great bug. Your standard parachute atoms in the top right. Carry those all the way down to a 24. 24s, even down to a 26 in the wintertime is going to be important. The midge right here in the bottom left. That is a fantastic pattern. The difference on that pattern, what you're going to see is it's got that brown shuck on the back of it. That's an excellent pattern, especially when you're seeing a lot of those midges cluster and hatch as you get into, the mid dead of winter towards the end of winter time. And then your old classic Griffin snap. These dry flies are get it done for you. A lot of times, if I see fish rising in the wintertime, right, they're going to be eating small. I'm not going to have a 5X leader. I'm probably going to be down to 6X. 6X nylon, right? I don't want fluorocarbon throwing the small dries. I want a leader and a tippet that's going to float. And so the 6X, even down to 7X on the nylon and the tippet is going to be really important. So this is when the time of year starts getting good. Spring, we're talking March, April, first half of May here. Things are coming to life. Water temperatures are starting to come up. The water flows are going to start increasing a little bit. We're going to start seeing our first mayfly hatch of the year. Conditions wise, okay, so right, we're going to go back, think what conditions we're about as we come up with our strategies for the spring fishing, right? So again, we're going to focus on our tailwater fisheries. This time of year, our freestones come into play. The Colorado, the Arc, they come into play. They start fishing really good. Right about that mid-March, St. Patrick's Day is a great time to be out there. The issue, what you're going to see on those bigger freestones as we get in the springtime, is you're going to get to the river one day and it's going to look low and clear. It's going to fish great. You come up days later and the water's going to look stained on you. And the reason that is because there's no dam control in that river. So as we get into end of March, we get these really nice stretches of weather. A lot of times that's going to do a little snow melt of our lower elevation snow, which is going to put all that water into the creeks, and those creeks are going to start pouring dirt into the Colorado or the Arkansas. And so those flows are going to fluctuate all spring. And after those nice stretches where it's really warm for a week, you're going to get more runoff in the river, right? That's more snow melt in the river. And what's that going to do? It's going to cool off the temperatures of the water. The flows are going to increase, but the temperatures are going to decrease. So right away, your hatches are going to be real sporadic like that on those bigger freestones. Reason we target more of the tailwaters is it's going to be more consistent. We have hopefully consistent flows, but more importantly, consistent water temperatures behind it. This happens to me every spring. It could be 75 degrees on you, or it could be 25 degrees on you. It could be snowing, it could be sunny. Be prepared. As you get into the springtime, don't let the bad weather shy you away. Bad weather will fish good in the springtime. You know, we get our first mayfly hatch happens right about, down the Deckers area, mid-end of March of olive. First mayfly we see every year, and it is an awesome pattern to fish. You go fishing on those days in April where it's kind of overcast, spitting rain, a little snow on you, you're going to have a potential for a fantastic dry fly fishing day and just a great fishing day in general. Don't let the bad weather shy you away in the springtime. Great time to be out there. We also got to start paying attention to spawning, right? We have our rainbows and our cutthroats are spawning in the springtime. And that doesn't happen at the same time for every different river. For those who, we're just talking about Cheeseman Canyon and the tremendous efforts that's going on to try to restore the canyon. The canyon, those rainbows, you're not going to see spawning until May and June. And June is where they're going to be peaking spawning. Right? At the Dream Stream, you're going to see that middle of March. And so as you get into the springtime, be cautious just where you're stepping in the river. If you come to a part of the river and you see big fish just sitting there in shallow water, sometimes if it's too good to be true, it might be too good to be true, right? You see those fish in there, tip your hat to let them do what they're doing. That's going to benefit all of us in the long run too. It takes a little discipline when you see a 24-inch fish on a bed. That's fairly easy to hook. Think about the future. Not worth it. Tip your hat to that fish. You're going to find more fish behind her in the deeper water that are going to be fair game, that are going to eat good. Don't focus on this fish in the really water you see in April. It's a kind of a good rule of thumb if you don't know what you're looking at. And if you don't know, there is absolutely not a thing wrong with that. You don't know until someone teaches you. So if you ever have questions, call a shop around. We have great shops around. Or our shop, the Blue Crow up in Evergreen, or come down here to Anglers Hall, Golden Fly Shop, Charlie's. There's great shops all over, great intel. Never be afraid to ask a question. Take a picture. If you have a question, you see it in the river, take a picture, show a guy at the shop. They'll tell you if that fish was spotted or not. But really, do your best efforts to protect those fish. So knowing that, we know the conditions. Now, what are some of our spring strategies we're to start seeing? Well, now, those fish, the metabolism speeding up. Those fish are starting to eat more. Starting to sit more in the quicker currents of the river. right? Now, as we get into springtime, we're really going to start really targeting the transitions in the river, the shelves, the drop offs, the seam lines. That's where we're going to start finding a lot of fish. Now, understand in the springtime, it starts off cold, right? Those overnight lows get cold still. And so sometimes in the springtime, that first hour or two of fishing might start off a little slow for you with it. As soon as it starts picking up, it's going to keep going the rest of the day. Still focusing a lot on nymphing. Dry fly season's coming to life in April. You're still going to make most of your money going down deep. The advantage of fishing in the springtime, especially nymph rigs, eating. They're looking for it. Our Baetis nymphs, the blue and olive nymphs that get really active, that's like a size 18, maybe a size 20. That's a lot bigger than those midges we were throwing all winter long. Now could get away with a little bit bigger line, a little bit bigger leader too. Again, cloudy days, dry fly. You know, think like when we're fishing a blue and olive hatch, one of my favorite mayfly hatches of the year, that hatch doesn't happen early in the morning. It's going to be right after lunchtime, early afternoon, when you're going to see a lot of those duns popping off the water. If you get to the water and I'm getting ready to fish tomorrow, I'm probably not going to rig a dry fly rod to start the day. Again, if you want to, there's nothing wrong with that. Fishing's fishing. Whatever you want to do, go do. But it's probably not going to be the most productive for you. Think going deep. And you'll see when it's a blue and olive time of year and it's time to throw dry flies, the fish are going to tell you. You just got to look, you know, slow down. When you're fishing, slow your pace down. Everybody, not everybody, a lot of people I fish with, we get to the river, everybody's such in a hurry to go hurry up, cast, go fish. Slow down. Slow down. You'll be shocked how many fish you're going to start seeing real close to you. As soon, right? But you're not going to have fish that are hearing you talk. Ain't going to spook unless you're really screaming. They're going to spook off of you walking when they're feeling your steps in the river, right? That lateral line, that's how they feel all those vibrations. You start walking in the water clumsy, you're telling all those fish you're there before you even take an attempt to catch them. Be stealthy. Walk like you're going to go pet a deer. You know, soft. Same for with the fish. Have fun with it, but understand it's not a wild animal. They're always fearing for life. All their predators come from above them. Most of their predators. Eagles, ospreys, us. They're always fearing for their life. And if you go and tell them you're here before you're going to start casting at them, it'd be a little difficult to catch them. Fly size increases. That's the thing about springtime. No more 24s. Midges are going to be around year round. So you can always focus on those midges, especially early in the morning. But throughout the day, you get away with throwing bigger pheasant tails, Baetis nymphs, spars and mergers, stuff like that. It's mainly the springtime. My main focus is mainly the blueing olive hatch. Blueing olives, like I said, one of my favorite mayflies. Caddis also become a really important food source as we get towards the end of spring, right? You're going to start seeing caddis bouncing around down at Deckers in April, right? Mid to end of April. You'll start seeing where everybody's heard of the famous Mother's Day hatch of caddis hatch on the Arkansas, right? Those early seasons are darker bodied flies. So if I'm going to see a little caddis hatch and I see caddis bouncing in the wall around the water, a black caddis is a really good early season pattern. Whether you're on the Arkansas, the South Platte, as the season goes on, you have several different species of caddis, from tans to browns, olives. That early season, think darker on your bodies of those flies, though. Now, as we talk about kind of flies and the rigging we're going to have in the springtime, in the wintertime, I didn't throw a lot of attractors. Throw an egg around in the wintertime as an attractor, but really in the springtime is when I start throwing attractors. Fly larva, a ton of fun to fish in the spring. I have more success in the springtime on a crane fly larva than most other times of the year. Egg patterns work fantastically well. Leech patterns, all these become a great first fly option as we get into March and April, and those fish again they're more hungry, right? Their metabolism speeding up. They're getting more aggressive. You can fool them on some bigger stuff as we get into that warmer time of year. Nymph wise, what I'm putting behind that attractor is throughout the day and what we have on water flows. If our flows, like we saw this spring, are really, really low, that temperature should start creeping up a little quicker. We should see Baetis a little sooner. And so I'm fishing a lot of Baetis type of nymphs. A Mercury pheasant tail. That fly will catch fish pretty much anytime you want to throw. That's a great fly. Really, really great in the springtime. Bars emerging at the top left fly. That's a classic fly. It's been around for a long time. Fly's gonna catch fish. The RS2. Everybody's heard of an RS2. The gray RS2, the time it shines is during a blueing olive hatch. And so in the springtime and the fall, because we get another blueing olive hatch that's going on right now, but the RS2 is a great fly. Think as you get fishing, that time of year, especially if I get to the river early in the morning, I'm going to have that egg or that leech or that crane fly larva on. I'm probably going to start the morning with a midge. Fish are going to be eating midges hard in the morning time still. The medallion midge in the top right is deadly fly. It's a midge pupa pattern that is killer. Fish that fly. This one, I mean, it'll catch all over Cheeseman, Deckers, the blue, anywhere you fish, the frying pan. The days I've had on the frying pan on the medallion midge, incredible. The Jujubatus, Charlie Craven pattern, that is a staple. The Jujubatus is great as we get into the springtime. The Top Secret Batus. All these flies right here, any given day, I'm going to throw in any of these. And I might mix them up today as I get closer to lunchtime and I know those blueing olives are going to start hatching. I'm probably going to put that bar merger on or that RS2. Earlier in the morning, before that hatch really gets going, I'm going to still focus on those nymphs, the Top Secret Batus, the Jujubatus, pheasant tail. Does that make sense? So the dry fly fishing, again, April, cloudy days, first week or two of May, cloudy days, you have great dry fly opportunities, especially on the Platte River. Antonio's adult blueing olive, another, just like his quill midge. This is just the Batus, the mayfly imitation of that pattern. A parachute blueing olive. It's a great fly to always have, especially in the spring and the fall. In the fall time, it's going to represent the Batus just like it is. So you're hearing me say Batus or blueing olive. It's a blueing olive, which is a species of a Batus. But having some blueing olive or Batus color parachutes is really important. And even as you get in the fall, you might see a lot of female trichos on the surface that are really tiny. Even though this isn't technically a tricho pattern, the fish is going to get for a tricho. It's got that same color that they're going to be looking for. A sparkler dun or a CDC dun, great dry fly pattern. And again, when I'm fishing more of those dun style flies, right? Everybody knows like a dun is one of the first stages of the dry fly. It's right when that merger comes up and their wings pop out of the surface and they have to fully mature and dry off and then they fly away. When you see the duns popping on the surface is when you're going to see a lot of fish start eating on the surface. And when you see that, that's when those dun style flies become really good. The Molefly, great one. A Molefly is great, especially if you throw a tandem dry fly rig. You could put that Molefly behind a parachute blueing olive or a different one, and you'll see this fly rides a little lower in the water column. The Molefly is excellent, especially right at the early stages of the hatch. You're seeing those fish kind of swirl on the surface, but you're not quite sure if he ate the dry fly or did he eat the emerger right below it. That's where the Molefly shines for you. That's going to sit real low, and you're going to fool a lot of fish with that fly. So now we're getting into like the middle part of May. Our snow melt's happening. Runoff's kicking in. Not too often do we see Cheeseman Canyon look like this. Very few days a year. And that just happened because it was right after the floods. Thing was real stirred up in there. But when you get to the river and you see stuff like this, it happens. We're going to see that pretty much the rest of May, pretty much the month of June. And what do? Again, we're going to focus on tailwaters. In case you don't get the drift, tailwaters are pretty much a good option 365 days a year. It's so reliable, right? Come to the Colorado and the runoff. It is blown out, right? You're not saying you can't go catch a fish. You certainly can. Don't be shy, but you might have better options out there. No need to get in the water, right? There's spots as the water gets really dirty and you can't see the rocks in the river. It gets pretty dangerous to wade. And a lot of times you don't need to. As the volume of water starts really increasing, those fish will start pushing towards the soft margins, soft edges on the water, behind the rocks, finding those current breaks. So a lot of times you could sit right on the bank and more productive water and staying safe the whole time. You know, again, thinking runoff, we're June, but it's ice cold water still. It's cold snow melt coming down. Wading safety, I say that's an important thing, just because I'm a firm believer in the saying to live to fish another day. You know, don't put yourself in harm's way to go catch a fish. You're going to have options. Just cover a little bit more water. You'll see them. And then water temperatures, right? It's going to stay cool. Even if the volume of water is a little lower, the snowmelt's going to keep cool water in the system, especially your freestones. Your tailwaters will start to even out a little bit as they get used to the high flows, but most of the time our temperatures are going to stay in the 40s here. So, the thing about high water season, we're no more 20s or 22s, no more 6X. We get to throw the bigger stuff. We had to throw bigger rigs, 2X, 3X. That dirty water, fish aren't going to shy away from the big stuff. Now, there's times when that volume of water is huge and it starts clearing up. Even if it starts clearing up, drop to 3X or 4X, you know, but most of the time we're throwing bigger stuff. My issue most of the time is getting down to the bottom in that high water season. That is a huge thing for me. Right. And what's tough is we're fishing those soft water margins that all those sticks that are coming down naturally settle. This time of year, you're going to go through some flies. Know that going into it. You're going to hook stuff on the bottom. You just can't see that's down there. But that's where you're going to have to fish if you want to be productive there. Dry fly fishing in the high water season is not the best. When those fish have a lot of water coming down, a lot of volume, those fish are so satisfied down deep. And I think when they're getting their food that they have down deep, what's the motivation to come up and eat a dry fly? Hardly nothing. Every time they eat a dry fly, they're putting themselves on a platter for all the predators, for the eagles, the osprey, for us. So it's going to take some good bugs to really convince them to start lifting up. The high water season, the caddis you'll see is they start bouncing around the edges. But in general, we're thinking about going down deep. Again, not saying you're going to catch a fish on a dry fly in the high water season. You're just going to have better options of catching many fish going down deep. So high water flies right here. This is my warm time of year. If I'm down at Deckers and we have water 400, 500, 600 CFS or even higher, 600 just seems high to me this year because we haven't seen anything close to it. But if that water is clear, brown and tan, natural color worm's the way to go. If you get a little stain in the water, you go way down lower at Deckers and more of the creeks are coming in, put a little bit more dirt in the water. Then you start experimenting more with the pinks and the red of the worm, something they could see. But generally, if it's stained just a little bit or pretty clear, make it throwing brown. Now, there's times when that water does get a little dirty. And when that water is really dirty, the color black contrasts that dirty water really, really well. And so throwing sometimes a black stonefly, a Pat's rubber legs, something that they're going to see that's going to contrast that dirty water is going to be your option. Scuds are always great options. Orange scuds, olive scuds, great option, especially we're talking May and June, our high water season. That's where these flies are shining. And after all that talk about, hey, we're staying down deep, we're not throwing dry flies. There's a sweet hatch that happens during our runoff. It's our salmon fly hatch. It is, you hit a salmon fly hatch right, you'll spend the next 10 years trying to hatch it or catch that the same way again. It is an extremely tough hatch to stay on top of, and that hatch usually coincides with our high water season on the upper Colorado. So as we get in towards that last few days of May, the first week and a half of June, that's the peak of that hatch. So when we're in the wintertime and we don't get the snowpack we get, or should get, we can go, and fish this hatch like we could this year a little bit. Now, years where we have a normal snowpack, there's times when that water's still so raging, you'll see a lot of bugs on the water, but the fish aren't on them on the surface. That would be the one caveat where you get great dry fly fishing in our high water season. And keep in mind too, right? Other parts of Colorado might fish a little different, right? June, you're going to have the peak of the salmon fly hatch on down on the lower Gunnison in the Black Canyon. Most of these referring just to these front range rivers, rivers that we get to go fish a lot, what we see more often. So we get out of that high water season. Now we get into the summertime. The summertime is when life is awesome. You wake up in the morning, it's warm outside. You go stand in the river all day, it feels great. Summertime fishing, this is what most people think of. Everything early part of summer is still green. The water's great, the fish are moving, the bugs are active. Life is good. So as we get off that high water season, our flows will start to lower a little bit and they'll start to stabilize. Our temperatures will start getting in the 50s again. The fish are going to be really, really happy. They, as we get deep in the summer, because when we're thinking summertime, July, August, and September, right where we are right now, right towards the tail side of that. As we get towards this tail side, as we get to August and September, there's a lot of places that we got to seriously consider water temperatures. You go up to the Dream Stream in early August this year, you're probably done fishing by 11:30 in the morning because that water's going to be 68 to 70 degrees. And that's what becomes really deadly for the fish. If anybody fishes the Dream Stream or fishes 11 Mile Canyon, take a look. You can go to the Division Water Resources website where they have all the stream gauges. And on the Dream Stream and 11 Mile Canyon, they have temperature gauges as well. It's a long drive for us to get up to the Dream Stream only to find out that we're going to be done fishing pretty quick. You can look at those temperature gauges online on those two rivers, and you could see all the way up to the last day of when that temperature is starting to hit 70 degrees or if it's close. It's really good intel, and that's something newer on those rivers that it's really a great resource for us anglers. Just not be let down going all the way up to South Park to, fish for a few hours, then have to come up with a contingency plan right away. Traditional summer, right? Fishing, we're going to have really good fish in the morning, really good fishing in the evenings. Sometimes you're going to have that afternoon lull where the fishing just kind of is tough midday. Two things can change that. We get a mayfly hatch in the afternoons on most years. It's called a PMD, a pale morning dun. That is another afternoon fly hatch, and that will pick up our fishing some days. If anybody's been out to Deckers or Cheeseman this summer, hasn't been very good. It's the hatches just haven't been there. So sometimes those afternoons will slow down a little bit. Fishing's fishing, right? You get those cloudy days, and we've been lucky this year with the precipitation we've gotten this summer. Sometimes those storms are going to roll in on you in the afternoon, and as those storms or that pressure changes, right? The pressure's going to drop. You're going to get a little spurt in good fishing before those storms hit you. So summertime, this is where I get a lot of my questions for people. Do I throw a nymph? Do I throw a dry fly? Do I go a dry dropper? Do I go a streamer? Yes. Have fun. No wrong answer. As we get in the summertime, our bugs are active first thing in the morning. We're going to have our midges going. We're going to get the smallest mayfly we get called a trico. If you want to do a little dry fly fish in the morning, we get these great trico spinner falls a lot of times in the mornings. We're going to have the PMDs. We're going to have green drakes, another mayfly out here. We're going to have our stoneflies. We're going to have our caddis. We'll have crane flies. It could be overwhelming sometimes going, okay, where do I start? There's so many options. Where do you go? Be prepared. And a really good example of this is Pat and I were doing a trip, and this was in August down at Deckers. Mid-morning, we get into a midge hatch, and those fish start rising on the surface. We're mid-August, right? Everybody's throwing hoppers and big stuff. Like a dummy, I don't have my dry flies on me, so I got to go knock on his door on the river and say, please give me some little small dry flies. But the point being is we're mid-August, 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning, start throwing size 24 parachute Adams, and we're getting 16, 17-inch beautiful browns consistently for a good 45 minutes. Tons of fun. Be prepared. You can see those midges. You'll see a great golden stonefly hatch as we get into early August, end of July. Such a fun hatch to fish. We have options. Now, throughout the summer, the battle we have a lot of times on our tailwaters is we're fighting a decrease in flows, right? So we're coming off our high water season, they're going to stabilize, and all throughout the summer, you're going to start seeing those flows usually start dropping down. Let's do that. Fish get finicky. If anytime you're going to go fish a tailwater and you see the water came up the day before, 2 days before, fishing should be pretty good. The increased volume of water dislodges a lot of bugs on the bottom, gets the fish to eat really good. If the flows aren't very good, I'm not going to dislodge all those bugs. So in the summertime, if you get there and you see the flows decrease the day before, understand that might mean go throw my big flies. Maybe the worm worked really good for me yesterday, but now they cut the flows 100 CFS and those fish are a little on edge. Maybe they're not going to fall for that easier San Juan worm that I want them to eat. But when I see that happening, I know instantly I'm going to shift my fly choice down. I will see a decrease in flows, and right away I know I'm going to go to a mayfly nymph or a midge. I'm going to go smaller in the morning, knowing that I can get them on big stuff, but I'm going to try to stack the odds in favor by going a little small. So summertime, again, another great time to have an attractor on your nymph rigs. The stonefly becomes really prevalent on the South Platte as we get into July and August and early September. The golden stonefly hatch is awesome. Now, the great thing about stoneflies is a golden stonefly will have a 4-year life cycle. So they're always in the water. You stay in the water in January, go find stoneflies. Now, does it mean the fish are targeting them? Not really. For those, like a stonefly, not like a mayfly. Their life cycle doesn't happen all in the water. A stonefly has to migrate. So they live in the bottom of the river and they have to swim all the way to the edges. They'll climb up on logs, on rocks. And once they're out in the dry air, that's where they're going to hatch. And you'll see, we call them shells. There are rich bodies that are left behind. And you walk by some big boulders next to the river and you look at some of those flat faces, you'll see tons of those shucks around those rocks. Great time to know Pat's rubber legs is going to be a really effective fly to fish. And that means the fish are seeing them. Right? Those nymphs are moving in the water, become an easy prey for the trout, scuds, and worms still. So I get in the summertime and almost exclusively on a natural color worm, a brown, a tan. So again, this is the difficult part. What am I going to put behind that attractor? Right? There's no magic right answer. A lot of times, what we have in Colorado and any river and fly fishing in general is trying to crack the code. You go to the South Platte, and the reason the South Platte has the reputation it does is you can go there one day, throw it on a fly, show up the next day, and not have a very good day. You got to be able to make your adjustments and adapt to what you're seeing on the river. Slow down, pay attention. If I'm in the morning, a lot of times, caddis are going to be very, very active first thing in the morning, last thing in the evenings. You'll see them throughout the day hatching as well, but they're going to be very, very active first thing in the morning. So sometimes I'll put that worm on, I'll put a graphic caddis, which is this green guy right here. A jigged buckskin is a fantastic pattern. It's a great fly. Buckskins are awesome. Who doesn't love a prince nymph? Prince nymphs are a good attractor. They'll take it for a stonefly. They'll take it for a lot of stuff. Prince nymph is one of my fly. I've just been fishing a prince nymph since I was a kid. That's a fly that one of the first flies I learned how to tie was a prince nymph. So that fly is always kind of a special place in my heart. Mercury soft tackle pheasant tail. So, if anybody who doesn't fish soft tackle pheasant tails, try it. It's going to surprise you. Soft tackle pheasant tail is great when those mayflies are moving around. You know, the soft tackle pheasant tails can become really, really good mid to late morning, early afternoons in the summer months. Soft tackle pheasant tail is also going to full fish when caddis are really active. That is a fly that's just in the shop up at the Evergreen. We see it a lot, and it's like a lot of people bypass soft tackle pheasant tail, and it's one of my favorites. And again, I encourage you, if you haven't fished it, fish it. That fly's going to catch fish for you. And then the main part of the PMDs, the main part of the mayflies I'm hitting are those PMDs. A split back PMD nymph. That's called a crackback PMD. It's a really good. It's got the little yellow hot spot. It represents that adult body coming out of the thorax of that PMD nymph. Great option. And the PMD flavor of the bars emerger. That again, I'm throwing those flies more around lunchtime here in the summertime. Early afternoons, even about the afternoons for that matter. But what's near and dear to my heart is dry fly fishing. And we have several different opportunities of dry fly fishing. What we're going to focus first is the match the hatch, right? You see fish naturally rising in the water. It's going to be could be several different bugs depending where you are in Colorado. It could be a PMD like you're seeing on the top right done, like the Bars Visidun is a really, really great pattern. You're going to see red quills out. The rust spinner's great. When a PMD hatches, right, their spinner falls usually the next day, and you're going to see them having that more reddish hue to them. That is a great pattern. For those who have patience and want to fish tricos on the surface, trico pattern. Could be a very frustrating hatch to fish on the surface. You're trying to see a size 22 or 24 in a field of thousands of naturals, and it could be very frustrating. Try taking that trico dry fly and put it behind your attractor on your nymph rig. There's so many spinners that are on the surface of the water, and the natural hydrology of the river is going to suck a lot of them under the surface. And again, those fish are going to try to take the easy way out if you give them opportunity. And they have a lot of these drowned spinners hitting them underneath the surface. It's a great way to fish a trico when you don't want to deal with the finickiness of the surface fishing with them. Green drakes. Well, that's a fun hatch to hit. You know, up on the Roaring Fork is a great one. Up on the Frying Pan's good. They're all over. The Gunnison's got great green drakes. Down the low at Deckers has good green drakes. Maybe not as thick as they get in other rivers, but way down low at Deckers is a gem. But you're going to see a lot of drakes there. You're going to see a lot of the drakes in July. July, as we get close to August, it's a great hatch. Ton of fun to fish. You're fishing a size 10 and 12 dry fly. It's a big, big mayfly. And then you're a reliable caddis. Like in the summer months, I have opportunities. You'll see some caddis fishing on surface mid to late morning, early afternoon sometimes. But does anybody here fish Clear Creek? Holy cow. You go and in the summer months, you go the last hour or two of light on Clear Creek, and you take a little caddis, whether it's an X caddis, which is one of my favorites, or a cornfed caddis, you take that up to Clear Creek. It is so much fun. The guy near and dear to a lot of our hearts is Carrie Carriger. Ryan Carey specialized in Clear Creek. And if anybody had the chance and the pleasure to meet Carey, his passion for Clear Creek was contagious. And he invigorated the love of that river on me too. And it's a fun option when you don't have all day to fish. Don't overlook Clear Creek. So when you're throwing those match the hatch dry flies and you see a fish sitting right below the surface, that's a layup. And I hate to say layup because you have to execute that cast and that drift. That fish wants to eat the dry. If I saw a fish and he's sitting right below the surface, don't throw a nymph at him. But please throw a dry fly at him. You know, and a lot of times when you come across a fish that's sitting there in the river, all you got to do is step back and behind that fish. And if you keep feet really calm and you're retying your rig, he's going to stay as happy as can be. Now, if I see that fish and I get upstream of him where he's looking at me and I start tying my fly and my rod's kind of jumping up and down, chances are he's going to catch on to something, right? Stat is in your favor. We talked about earlier. Don't be in a hurry to get to the river. Take a step back, watch. You see a fish like this, a lot of times you can get them on a pattern on the surface and how frequently they're actually eating. It makes it easier for us to time up our drifts. Now, when we're throwing some of the bigger dry fly, a lot of times we're going to get more reactionary bites out of these flies. This is our hopper time of year. The old sweetgrass hopper on the top right. That is a great pattern. It's all foam-based body. You want to throw 2 nymphs off of there, that thing is going to float like a cork all day for you. The chubby Chernobyl, And I'm back. So unfortunately for you, I don't know how to pick up a sign that it's my time to leave. That's why I'm still a single guy. So you're gonna have to listen to me talk for a little bit longer. Um, the chubby Chernobyl. With my fly, I have a love-hate relationship with that fly. Nowadays, I find myself on the smaller ones more than anything. There's times those bigger ones on the bigger freestones, the Colorado, the Arc, that size 8 or 10 is going to be really good. The South Platte nowadays, I'm like on a 14 or 16 more often than not. And I find myself getting way more eats on the smaller ones than I do on the bigger ones. The advantage of the hubby is, again, it's a great dry dropper. Fly's going to float well. It's really easy to see. And then the fly to the left of the chuck, another classic pattern, the Amy's Ant. Amy's Ant, they're going to take it for a stone fly. They'll take it for a hopper. They'll take it for a lot of big stuff. The amount of each you'll get on an Amy's Ant will surprise you on the rivers. Those fish will come out at, you won't even see them. They'll come out of nowhere and just come up and crush that fly. Well, then don't forget about your smaller terrestrials either. Your beetles, your ants. Ant patterns can be really prolific on the river, especially in those summer months. Don't overlook those flies. So now this is the season we're getting into right now. Getting into the fall season, right? We're talking about very end of September, October, November, until maybe the early part of December. Fall fishing is sometimes the time of year I get some of my bigger fish. This is a big rainbow that came from the Yampa in the first week of November. There's big fish to be had in the fall. And like the spring, you just gotta be paying attention to be on you, but be really cold on you, right? The temperatures overnight start getting cooler. Anybody's been on the mountains lately? I live up in Evergreen, and those cold nights are back. Leaving the windows open in my house is awesome. Wake up and it'll be like 58 degrees in my house, and I love it. That's fall fishing. That's fall conditions for you. Again, your flows are going to keep dropping. We're going to have to start paying attention to more spawning fish now in the fall. We're going to have our brook trout and our brown trout spawning. Now, our brook trout are more high elevation fish, right? But we have a lot of brown trout spawning that we got to be cautious of. On the Dream Stream, we're going to start seeing waves of fish that are already in there right now. But you'll see waves of fish all fall coming in there. Generally speaking, as things get really cold, you get deeper in the fall, your hatches will start thinning out and they'll start getting a little smaller. We have a great fall blueing olive hatch, right? The same blueing olives that are in the spring. I shouldn't say the same, they're different species, but the ones in the fall are smaller. The spring ones are really big, about a size, I say really big, relative, about a size 18. The fall might be a size 22 to a 24. But you're going to see high numbers of them, and those fish are going to be keying in on them. Back to seeing a lot of midges again. Seeing the tail side of our trico hatches in the morning. Everything's kind of dissipating. As I get into October, I'm not going to have the number of fish wanting to come up and eat that big grasshopper. So I know as a fisherman, I need to adjust my tactics again. So as we get deeper in the fall, you know, we're dry fly fishing. It's going to be available, but it's going to take a hatch to really get them to lift up. Whether it's a blueing olive hatch or midges, like I say, you're not going to get a lot to come eat those attractors. I'm not saying you won't catch any, but you're not going to have the volume that you're hoping for. Nothing is reliable, like always, with fish. All time, I'm going to start shifting my fly size smaller. You know, the bigger stuff might fool a few fish. Now, what do we have to consider, right? Does anybody here fish deckers? I keep saying deckers all night. I imagine most people fish deckers. What are we seeing all summer and every summer? Pressure, 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 pressure. A lot of angling pressure. There's times you almost feel like you go out this time of year and those fish ice. You know, they know if they can probably tell you a name of a few different fly patterns they see every day. They think smaller. We get in the fall, now we got to think about working these fish a little bit more. Dreamers become a really good option. Rainbows are going to get aggressive. Browns are aggressive. You know, everybody's trying to fatten up before wintertime when their metabolism slows down. So as you can have great days on the streamers, if anybody likes throwing streamers around, very first thing in the morning in the fall, when it's kind of cold out, great time. When the low light conditions, that's what I'm targeting on those streamer days. You know, first thing in the morning, last thing in the evenings, cloudy, overcast days. Those are streamer days. Nymph wise, now we're thinking kind of the same nymphs that we were throwing back in April and May. But now I'm just going to shift my smaller to try to match those naturals. Blue-wings are going to be a little smaller than they were in April, so my fly size had to get a little smaller. I'm going to be down to size 20s and 22s, even 24s on my pheasant tails. The top secret Baetis, I'm going to be down to a 20. Those RS2s and the bars emergers, those are great emerger patterns all fall. But again, body size 22, think it's smaller, back to the 5X, possibly 6X on those low flows again. The dry fly fishing is going to be more match the hatch styles again, kind of like springtime. So we're going to have the Antonio's adult blueing olive or the parachute blueing olive. Now midges are going to be a little bit more prevalent again. So Pat's midge becomes a great pattern. A Griffith snap becomes a great pattern. A parachute Adams, all reliable, great pattern. Size 22s, all fall up, are great. So thank you for letting me come talk to you tonight. I appreciate the opportunity and just have an idea. When you go out and go fishing, try to get better at something. And if you don't want to, by all means, go have fun. But if you want to get really fishing and keep climbing the ladder, get better and better and catch more and more fish, focus on one thing a day to get better at. I'm going to work on my hook setting today. I'm going to work on trying to see a few more fish today. I'm going to work on being more active when I see my indicator tick. Maybe I don't want to wait for that indicator to go pegging down because I'm going to miss a lot of fish if I'm not paying attention to the little ticks, right? If you're throwing indicators on the South Platte, strongly encourage you to throw yarn. Yarn lands really soft on the water. It doesn't flop. Yarn's going to sprawl out a little bit. It's going to be really sensitive to those small bites. Really important as we get deeper and late in the fall, as we get in the winter, early spring. You're not going to have a lot of opportunities, right? As it gets cold, take advantage of the few opportunities you get. Indicator, as trivial as that sounds, is another great way of stacking the odds in your favor because you're going to pick up more of those small little strikes, right? Those Oros indicators, the airlock, they're great indicators. They float all day. Windy days, I throw for those because yarn catches a lot of wind. But on normal days, cast and watch that indicator hit. Again, if you're fishing at fish that get fished at every single day, they're probably used to that plop. And what does that plop tell them? That their mouth's about to hurt. So they're going to start getting out of the way. If the fishes, they're going to get conditioned to stuff. Stack the odds in your favor. Fish with that strategy. If anybody ever has any questions, there's not any stupid questions. Call us up in Evergreen. We got such a great team of people up in Evergreen that are always willing to help out any kind of questions. We can help out, tell you great public access points. What we're seeing on the river flows, what we're going to anticipate seeing, what flies that we've been throwing. And it's just not our shop either. There's great people in every shop in Colorado. We're like the mecca across the country. We have the ability when we travel all winter all across the country to hear how special Colorado is. And we know it, but we take it for granted sometimes. We go out on the East Coast and people will drive 3 or 4 hours to hit rivers that we have in our backyard. Grateful for that. Go enjoy them. Go experience them. Don't be worried about getting your butt kicked, but don't be afraid to ask questions either. Get better, adapt to your strategies. Thank you for letting me talk. Is there any questions at all? Awesome. Questions? I do not throw my scent off. I do not. It works. 100% works. I don't find myself with the time to throw a lot of mouse patterns. Throwing mouse patterns, it takes a lot of work on casting before you get rewarded. Being on the right river system helps, and knowing that river system helps. You want to try to target those rivers that have a lot of that tall grass going right up to the edges. Real low light, right? A lot of people do it at night for them. The times I have done it, it's been fun. I've got a few fish on mouse patterns. But it's usually for me, I end up probably cuddle up in my bed in my comforter and get ready for 4:30 to 5 o'clock the next morning. but it's a great question. And like, go fish them on reservoirs. A lot of people think rivers a lot. Throw them on reservoirs, especially same time, right? In the evening, sun's going down. You're gonna get those fish are cruising the edges. And if you have like a little cove, you go up to Williams Fork. Williams Fork Reservoir has a lot of little coves around where you can almost cast across a cove and swim that across. It could be a really good option though. Other questions at all? Nobody. Not one. Right here, buddy. What was that? Oh, that's correct. My favorite time of year to fish, springtime. For me, it's probably April, maybe Memorial Day weekend. You know, it's April for me, and it probably May, and that's because most of the time I have cabin fever. I talk about it all winter long, and I want to get out fishing, and I want the fishing to be really good when I get out there. And so that April time for me, I love it. Fishing's really good. I could throw dry flies around. Yeah, so I'd probably say the end of April, early May is my favorite. All righty. Well, bridge crossing. Bridge crossing. Yep. Flow dependent, but bridge crossing. I like. There's a lot of opportunities from fish you could see in the riffles eating on dries. There's so many of those little eddies that come on all those corners that could be really good. Um, Now, if it makes you feel any better, I've had a terrible dry fly year. I feel like I'm like missing it. I need it. It's a part of my life I was missing all summer, you know. And I've had good days. Haven't had the consistency behind the good days. You know, really hit or miss. The bridge crossing for me is the first. It's the area I caught my first fish on a fly I tied when I was 15. And so, like, I was fishing that area as a kid, so it's a little nostalgia for me going out there and fishing it. But yeah, I'd say bridge crossing for sure for me. You bet. Awesome. Well, guys, thank you again. Thank you. Thank you.